this water somewhere up here. This should do. Okay. Hey, everyone. My name is John. I like the tune. Some good tunes. Yeah. Hey, everyone. My name is John, and I work on a project called GLIF. GLIF is kind of like Lido, but built for Filecoin. And in case people in the room don't know what Filecoin is a decentralized storage network. It's a blockchain, and it's a layer 1 protocol. And that might sound a little weird because Filecoin is actually not a proof-of-stake blockchain. And so we've built this thing that looks a lot like liquid staking, but it's built in a little bit of a different way for Filecoin. And that's kind of what the talk here is about. I was too late with the change to the title slide, but I wanted to talk about foundational DeFi protocols and how liquid staking, in my mind, is a subset of what I call foundational DeFi protocols. And I'm going to kind of go into more about what I mean with that. And I also think there's a better name, so if people have tips on that, I'd love to hear it. So to jump right in, I think it's important to align on the opportunity. I think most people in the room are familiar with liquid staking and the problem that it solves, but just in case, the interesting sort of problem here is that any token ecosystem that uses a token in a staking way to create security or align incentives, there's sort of an opportunity to get more participation from retail or folks that may not have the skill set or the hardware in order to participate in your network, right? So this is kind of liquid staking. It emerged from this opportunity of, and this is a slide from Chainlink that just kind of goes over liquid staking on Ethereum, where you pool capital together and you basically give it to a node operator to run a validator for you so that us who don't care to run an Ethereum node or maybe don't have 32 ETH, we're able to participate in the Ethereum consensus. And the reason that I call this foundational DeFi is because there's a natural side effect of building these protocols that increases the underlying security or better aligns incentives for the network that it's actually built on. So when you think about generic DeFi, like Aave or Uniswap or things in that nature, they're of course really helpful for Ethereum and they add value for Ethereum, but not in the same way that Lido or Rocket Pool does, right? Because those protocols, as a side effect, are actually creating capital efficiencies between Ethereum token holders and node operators, and in the process, creating better security. And the reason that I think this is important and something to pay attention to is because it's an area of DeFi on any chain that's ripe for finding product market fit and explosive growth without having to convince people to farm your tokens or your points or whatever. You can actually create real, genuine demand for a product like this. And so I want to talk about the challenges here a little bit. Like, liquid staking is kind of the first, I would say, foundational DeFi protocol that we've seen work really well. But what if there are others, right? Like, what might that look like on Ethereum? And also, when in the case of like Filecoin, how do you build a foundational DeFi protocol not on a proof-of-stake blockchain, right? So Filecoin and GLIF are a case study that I'll use. Of course, I'm clearly biased, but we sort of, well, let me start out and tell you a little bit more about Filecoin first. So Filecoin has a staking element. We actually call it pledging. And Filecoin, like validators or miners, are actually storage providers that have big data centers. And the way that they mine Filecoin is they take at least 32 gigabytes of data, they pledge it to the network alongside some Filecoin, which operates as like a security deposit, and they're actually, for a minimum of 6 months, locked into that deal. If they want to free their money out early, they incur a termination penalty. And every day, the Filecoin storage providers have to provide daily storage proofs over the fact that they have this data. And if they miss those proofs, then they can get slashed. And so you could see how, especially in the case of Filecoin, like, I am not a data center operator, right? I don't have that much hardware. And for Filecoin, getting that amount of hardware and the amount of Filecoin you need to put down a security deposit at like petabyte, exabyte scale storage can be prohibitively expensive. And so the issue that GLIF was sort of trying to solve is to solve the same problem that Ethereum had with proof of stake, right? Where we need to bridge the gap, a capital market between token holders and node operators. In the case of Filecoin, it's a storage provider. And so, well, I guess that is what GLIF does, right? So from the liquidity provider perspective, it looks a lot like Lido, but from the storage provider's perspective, it actually looks more like Aave. And so the point that I'm making here is that GLIF is a foundational DeFi protocol for Filecoin, and it's found a lot of traction in product market fit because of that sort of importance there, but it's not built like liquid staking on Ethereum. So just to give you a little bit of a deeper dive into how that looks, on the liquidity provider side, there's a liquid staking token, just like Rocket Pool staked ETH or Wrap staked ETH for Lido, where you deposit some Filecoin, you get back a proportionate amount of iFill tokens, and those iFill tokens increase in value as rewards are sort of earned and accrued by the protocol. Now, on the storage provider side, storage providers actually have to pledge collateral to borrow, and that's why this looks a little bit more like Aave. And the way that we did this is we created a new collateral type. So the Filecoin storage providers, they are actually able to collateralize their mining assets in the protocol, and they can borrow Filecoin against them. And the way that that really works is it's pretty much illiquid fill that a storage provider has already pledged to Filecoin that then they're reusing, they're rehypothecating this collateral in GLIF. And so just like with Aave, if GLIF lends some Filecoin to a storage provider and that storage provider uses it to pledge more data to the network and grow, and then they stop proving that they have this data every day, they're going to start to get slashed. The value of that collateral will drop, and then that storage provider could get liquidated. But as long as that storage provider is mining Filecoin, growing, storing data, providing their daily storage proofs, there's actually like not even price risk for Filecoin because it's like fill on fill collateral and yield. So it's an interesting model, and the sort of the point that I want to make here, I guess a little bit of a shameless brag, is that we've had a really easy time growing and creating product market fit in this protocol because there was no other thing that did this, right? This is connecting token holders to storage providers, increasing the security and the size of the network, which is why it's the foundational DeFi protocol for Filecoin, and in the process, paying rewards to the liquidity providers and allowing the storage providers to operate more profitably. And just some more growth. Yeah, I mean, we've been out for almost 2 years now. And again, all this is like pre-token. We do have a token coming out, and we did actually kind of launch a point system right when the lines flattened out actually, but like the exponential portion of that graph happened like without any extra incentives, which is hard to do in DeFi in a competitive landscape, right? So the key takeaway from this talk is to try and get all of us to think about foundational DeFi protocols and maybe a better name as well. But like the opportunities here are really large, and the canvas is not that well explored. And I talked to a few people last night at the drinks reception who are actually working on foundational DeFi protocols with different models. And some of them were really interesting and new to me too. But if you're a builder in the room and you're looking for interesting DeFi opportunities or things that you can get involved with and build that have real lasting value and sort of a sustainable mechanism for paying out rewards, look for foundational DeFi protocols. And on the flip side, if you are building a blockchain or you're building a protocol that requires some sort of staking mechanism to create security, align incentives, or anything that kind of keeps that network going and moving smoothly, you should really think about how can I make it easy to build different types of foundational DeFi protocols, because if you don't, you can end up with weird capital inefficiency gaps where all sorts of like CeFi lenders will come in and things that aren't favorable for the value of your network, and ultimately its security and accruing value to the native governance or the native token of that ecosystem. So if you have any questions, I'll be around. I'd love to talk about it more. If you have any more questions about Filecoin or GLIF, come find me. And thanks.